Welcome to legendary Road America, where the action actually began on Thursday night as a race car parade extraordinaire unfolded with all the fan-favorite GT3, GT4, and touring car race cars driving from the track to downtown Elkhart Lake. Teams then parked their race cars at Siebken's Resort so fans could get up close to the drivers and the wide array of machinery from Ferrari, Mercedes-AMG, Porsche, Acura, Bentley, BMW, Audi, Honda, VW, and more. But one of the top stories coming into this weekend at Road America is the season-long battle that continues between Ferrari and Bentley. Only 1 point separates the two in the manufacturer's battle, while Tony Vilander in the R-Ferry Ferrari holds on to a narrow lead in the driver championship. And there are plenty of points on the table for the teams and drivers to grab this weekend. Another driver to watch will be Martin Fuentes in the Squadra Corsa TR3 Ferrari 488. After clinching the amateur driving championship at the Glen, Fuentes and his teammate are making their first step up into the Pro-Am ranks this weekend at Road America.
I know this track very well. I've known the Ferrari for a couple of years as well, so I think we're going to be good. I just want Mark to feel safe, feel comfortable with the car, because he doesn't know this track. So as long as he can get up to speed with the AM guys, I think I'll be up to speed with the Pro guys.
Meanwhile, Road America is home to one of the hottest teams in the series. Real-Time Racing, after missing the first event of the year, has been rocketing up the standings all season. And team owner Peter Cunningham is looking forward to a little home field advantage.
You know, racing at Road America pays the same points as any other racetrack, but this is our home track, and it's maybe arguably the best track in the world. So we love racing here, we love being here. We love all of our friends and family close by, so it's just a great weekend.
Real-Time Racing also treated everyone to what has become something of a tradition here in Wisconsin with the much-anticipated chicken roast Saturday night for the entire paddock. And speaking of this phenomenal venue, it's time for the Porsche track preview as factory driver Pat Long gives you a high-speed tour of America's National Park of Speed.
Welcome to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, Road America. My name is Patrick Long. I'm the driver of the 58 Wright Motorsports GT3R, and this is your Porsche track preview. Turn 1 at Road America is very fast. You approach, you see an access road on your left there. Your braking zone is after that. Low grip here, day 1 of practice. As we get up to speed, you'll see me working the steering wheel at the exit of the corners. Not how we like to be, but certainly when you're dialing in the car, you have to push to the edge and see where that limit is. Right now we're focused a little bit on dialing in some oversteer. Exit of turn 3, up through the gears. This is the fastest part of the racetrack. We'll get up close to 160 miles an hour. It's bending, as you see, so it's easy to defend, but you have to pick your line here into the brake zone for 5. Down into almost the 200 brake marker. Second gear, very slow. A little bit free on the exit, you see. Use all that access road as runoff. Turn 6, it's blind on entry. Second gear, you have to be careful with traction here. You can wear the rear tires down. Turn 7, very quick. You almost are flat out in the race using the double curve on the exit. Take a breath before you get down into turn 8. Great overtaking opportunity here into 8. But you'll see cars side by side here. One has to give up as we approach into the carousel. Flat out up into 4th gear. You're tight on the inside, white line. Let the car out a little bit, square up for the exit. Pick your eyes up to the exit of the racetrack and go to full throttle before your hands are open. Building speed down into the kink, one of the most treacherous corners in North America. 5th gear, a little breathe of the throttle, back to power. Building your speed as we weave down the back straightaway. There's no radio contact. We're well below the pit lane here. You're all by yourself as you approach Canada corner, another overtaking opportunity. Down to 2nd gear, tight on your apex curves here and using all the road on the exits. Building speed, turn 13, we used to call it Billy Mitchell Bridge, no more bridge. Flat out 4th gear on the exit, access road, driver's right, hustle the car back left. Final corner, very patient, it's bumpy on the way in. You need your exit speed here as it's a big climb uphill to the front straightaway. Road America is tight, it's technical in some corners, but long straightaways, a little bit of everything for the driver.
It's a special place. Let's get right to some highlights. Greg Creamer along with Calvin Fish, and from the pole, Daniel Serra with dominant qualifying, jumped to the lead early, Cal.
Yeah, Pat Long kept the heat on just ahead of the 2 Bentleys, and there in the background you see Mike Heaven, who leads in the Pro-Am division in the bright orange and white real-time Acura.
Then a big move here down to the inside is Andy Suchek in the Bentley, taking a run, looking at it, not able to get it done there, but he wasn't done quite yet. Look down to the left as they duck to the inside. There he goes.
Clears his teammate nicely. Baptista looking for grip here in this opening lap.
Big moves here, of course, as the race continued to unfold. And you look back just a little bit, Martin Barkey working the outside, some great tails away shots, and that's pretty important, Cal. Look at
this
that
is
move.
Dane Cameron now back down to the inside, gets inside of Soulé. This is a late race restart, and there were fireworks happening throughout this field.
Now that was a huge move, might have been the move of the race, up into the very tricky turn 6, looking back. And this was a very late race restart. It ended up being an incredible few lap shootout.
Watch here as Alvaro Perez starts to struggle a little bit, has a fuel pickup problem. Suddenly he loses control, exiting Canada corner.
Didn't hit anything, but lost a lot of ground. And to that team right there, our Ferry, the points blowing up just a little bit. And Tony Vilander, after the great run by Sarah, out of the car and elated. And as you can see, very different conditions here today. Cloudy, not raining at the moment. We'll be right back. Talking about these conditions here, it's been a very different day, Cal. We've had races, 2 of them, the first 2 of the day, shortened significantly by weather, and the rest of them run in some fairly sketchy conditions at times, and there is the potential, certainly, for some more of that coming.
There is. It was torrential here early in the day. We didn't think we were going to get any racing in. Then finally we got some racing that was shortened because of the conditions. But right now the racetrack is in the best condition it's been all day long. But there is the threat of this storm continuing to roll in. So it really makes it difficult for the teams right now. What setups do you put on the race car? If you made that decision at 10 a.m. this morning, full wet. Soften that car off, give it as much grip as you possibly can. Right now the racetrack is pretty dry. That is a whole different set of circumstances.
You've got to be able to just dance here when you've got these circumstances, as you put it, ever changing, it seems, as the day unfolds. And it certainly has got the potential to make some of the racing interesting. You see a very dry line there, but you get off that, if you're on the slick tires, it's going to be slippery, so precision is going to be a key component.
It's going to be really dicey, really difficult for the competitors to tread carefully here. Essentially, in the Pro-Am class, you got a lot of those starting towards the front with the faster driver in those driver pairings doing the second round of qualifying, so you're going to have all of the quick guys up front. So that's probably a good thing. Conversely, if you suddenly get rain middle of the race, then the AM partner has to get in and deal with those conditions.
Yeah, very good point here when that mix-up happens. And tell you, the first half of these second-day races are always spectacular with all the pros on board the Pro-Am cars. And you look at how some of the qualifying laid out. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But you got a pretty good group of Pro-Am cars that are up in front of all of the Pro Boys, and that is certainly going to keep things interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating, actually, that the 2 championship contenders in the Pro-Am class will start from the front row. So you've got Marcelli, a brilliant pole position for that young man in the Racers Edge Motorsports number 80 Acura alongside Dane Cameron. Then you go back to row 3, you got Vilander, who has the championship lead. Who's closer to him? Right alongside the number 9 Bentley.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty fascinating to watch this unfold. And, of course, the championships are on the line. We're talking about this race and 2 more left in this championship. And the fascinating thing is the last round at Vegas. Nobody knows that track. Nobody's been able to test on it. You get 1 test day.
Well, we thought we'd wait to Vegas to roll the dice. The teams have got to roll the dice right now on their setups.
You are looking live at beautiful Road America, America's National Park of Speed here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, where the story of the day has been the weather. Rain all throughout the day, but a brief window of dry right now. Nevertheless, a damp track which has left the teams up and down pit lane with some questions. What tire is the right tire to choose? And it seems like the consensus is to go with the dry tires. And an interesting caveat to this is the second weekend for the tire warmers here in Blancpain GT World Challenge America. That probably helps them make that choice.
So the field out on their first installation lap here at Road America. And there's a good evidence. You can see that dry-ish line. But here's the thing, Cal, you get into the area where it's protected by trees, where the breeze can't get to it, and in shade, that dry-ish is a lot less on the dry side, a little bit more ish, if you will.
Yes.
And so that's going to be very treacherous.
Yeah, but I'm just amazed how this track has turned around, Greg, from the last race that we had this morning, the GT4 America Sprint X competition. It was still pretty damp and it looked pretty nasty, but right now, everyone, as Ryan said, is on the Pirelli P0 slick tires, working it hard here. Maxime Soulet behind the wheel. Got involved in a real mad dash to the finish line yesterday with Pro-Am and Am cars mixed together. It was a wild finish.
It truly was, and we anticipate the start of this one to be equally intense. And it's just a matter of, you know, we've been talking all day, this corner here, this carousel, in the wet you run that rim shot, but as it starts to dry, where are you going to go? And there you can see there's a lot of those patches that are pretty darn dry, but you get offline on these slicks, it's going to be very sketchy.
Oh, if there's a misstep at the high speeds that you incur here at Road America, and have big consequences. So this is going to be a tricky one. There's a dry line there through the kink. There you see it. But if you get it wrong, look there, if you're just an inch outside, you're immediately in the dam. So certainly these tire warmers will help here. The second weekend of competition we've been using them. That will be a big aid for the drivers right now. Just got to try and maintain 2 formation laps here. Will allow them to cool off a little bit from how they are being baked prior to being put on the race cars.
And at the end of this first formation lap, the actual clock will start on this 90-minute timed event. Obviously working to work within our live broadcast pit window and window on the track as well. But speaking of pit windows, nothing else is changing. You've got the mandatory window, driver change, tire change, fuel.
Yeah, you have 80 seconds to get that done. So from hitting the timing line coming into pit lane 80 seconds later, you cannot be underneath that.
And as you can see, as the field continues up the hill, lights stay on the safety car. Field beginning their second of 2 safety laps, if you will. However, clock will start. And the reason for this is there's been so much water on this track, they want to give everybody a chance to really have a sense of where the grip is, especially since most are on the dry tires. Kyle Marcelli, second overall pole of the year, joined by Dane Cameron. The accuracy here looked really quick, but Ryan Dial, once again, mega impressive in that Mercedes.
Yeah, the really strong qualifying run at the Glen. Didn't follow up the good race performance. He'd like to redeem himself here today.
And then that third row made up of the points contenders in the 61 Ferrari, the 9 Bentley. And then you've got the number 7 Trent Hinman in with Till Bechtelsheimer, that number 5 Gradient Racing Unit Nutrition car. And then Scott Hargrove, a little bit farther back than we might have expected to see that car.
Yeah, they struggled a little bit, the Porsches and the Bentleys, to get up to speed, but they certainly had a strong run here yesterday. Pat Long, very effective in the early going.
And look at this here. Quick tire change. Looks like they may have gone out on wet tires and decided, yeah, that's just too much here.
Or
looks like
maybe they are on wets, but also that allows them to put much harder tires. Those tires are coming out of the warming blankets. He can catch up. He'll have more tire temperature than the rest of the grid right now. Stephen Cameron Racing always thinking about these type of things.
Well, that's a great approach to it. And sometimes when you're at the back, roll the dice, you got nothing to lose. Let's go for it.
And he's got to get on it too, so he should be able to maintain that tire temperature. The key is, can he catch them?
Yeah, they're giving him some pretty solid pace right now. And, of course, this is all part of the Blancpain GT World Challenge Manufacturer Championship battle. And let's take a look at where the standings are for the all-important manufacturers' points are. And there's teams that score points for all 3 global championships. Here are the drivers in the U.S. Championship scoring those points. These are the drivers for Europe in the European version of the championship, and then the Asian drivers that are scoring points for Ferrari in the global Blancpain GT World Challenge America. And here's a quick look at them from the 3 different global championships. And right now, they're the points. Ferrari has a little bit of work to do. Mercedes having the lead.
Yeah, it's a considerable lead, but there's a few rounds to go yet in their respective championships, so a lot can change.
Absolutely, as the field now working down through the section of track called Kettle Bottoms and leading into a very tricky corner, Canada corner. And as tricky as this corner is, it's maybe the exit of Canada corner into Billy Mitchell Bend. that really can get the drivers caught out.
Yeah, it's really a lot of rain down in this area of the racetrack. It hangs in the trees down here. So here we're going to have a massive battle right now between two of the young guns in our sport. Dane Cameron up against Kyle Marcelli.
Lights out, the Acura NSX, the official safety vehicle, signaling the drivers, all right, that he's going to clear the path, and it is now up to that front row, and Marcelli in particular, and he's not unfamiliar with this, having had that overall pole earlier in the season as well. Bringing them up, rule is you've got to be line astern. You show more than a headlight before that green flag flies. You could be adjudged to have a penalty here, and everybody looking pretty decently as they come up the hill. They said they might have a relatively late green. We'll see when that happens. Obviously, you'll know when they go, and it's green right now. Marcelli, nice job, but Cameron staying right on his outside, Cal.
He is. He doesn't want to give him the clear to come back online. There you see one of the cars duking around there. I think that's Colin Brown. Dane Cameron flashes to the outside and takes the lead. Matt Campbell up to third.
Cameron ramping the outside absolutely beautifully. Now setting up for turn number 3. Hugely important corner here. And working the outside, that's Perret, trying to work that outside line. You've got to be comfortable with the driver you're going around the outside with there.
Looking back at Trent Hinman aboard the Gradient Racing number 5 Acura NSX. Here comes Alvaro Perret trying to make a move on Matt Campbell as we barrel down into the brake zone for turn 5.
Campbell going to take him in deep, and look at Dial trying to come back after that third place qualifying effort again. Not getting the best of starts, has slipped back to 5th.
Tony Vilander, our championship leader, sits there in the 6th position in the red SRO Motorsports Ferrari, just waiting for things to settle down a little bit in the early going.
Hugely important for Perret to get up there, 6th to 4th here in this opening lap. And Vilander trapped just a little bit, and as a matter of fact, looks like he has Soule hunting him down right now.
Yeah, and you know he's not going to get any favors because it's Bentley versus Ferrari for the manufacturer's title. Also, Alvaro Perret and Andy Soucek going up against Vilander for the driver's title. So you know if Soule has anything for the SRO Motorsport Ferrari, he's going to put it to him.
When Matt Campbell has, once things settled a little bit, he's been able to gap Perret just a smidge, give himself a little breathing room. But look at this, Marcelli absolutely hounding Cameron.
Yeah, saw Kyle Marcelli. We're enjoying an ice cream in downtown Elkhart last night. He said Dane's car looked pretty impressive from my viewpoint yesterday. You can put it wherever you want, but very different track conditions here today.
All right, first lap at Anger. And here we go through turn 14, this long uphill climb, much steeper than the TV cameras would have you indicate. You can see it's pretty steep even there. And you just have to keep at it here. And this is a long, long run. And the camera easing away just a little, Cal.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just a downforce setup that they've elected to utilize on the real-time racing. But with the draft, Kyle Marcelli looks to the inside. Little twitch there from Cameron as he turns in. Tire temperatures still not probably up into their prime operating range. Championship on the line, 11 points separates the two drivers. Cameron, a little twitch there, looking for grip early.
Riding on board, absolutely great stuff. And your comment about the downforce, if they've trimmed this car out a little bit, and the MBRP entry from Racer's Edge behind for Marcelli has more downforce, that could have been why he closed it up so much in the braking zone. Downforce brakes.
Absolutely. It's not just getting through these high-speed corners here with the downforce. It's how effective will you be down into these brake zones. On board here with Maxime Soule, the Belgian driver, trying to put the heat on Tony Vilander.
This turn's so tricky, turn 6. So easy to get it wrong. Generally, it's either wrong and you're off the outside or you're slow.
Yeah, it's hard to find that sweet spot as a real synchronization and sweet spot as you come up over the crest of that hill to get into turn 6, releasing the brakes, picking up the throttle and hitting your lines. Vilander's starting to find his stride here a little bit.
And as you said, Soule, then behind him, Trent Hinman getting the call, and then blue and black. The white side panels, that's the Gradient Racing Unit Nutrition Acura, sharing with Till Bechtelsheimer. Trent just coming off a tremendous race.
Boy, oh boy, did Trent drop the left sides there as you turn in. That's fine in the drive, but that paint is going to be slippery with the rain that we've had here this morning.
Yeah, I'd seen him do that, not that bad, but he did it a little bit on the previous lap, and I thought, if you want to be over there, but apparently he feels it's workable right now. But He's just watching Matt Campbell up front just ease away just a bit, and it doesn't help that he's got Ryan Dial filling his mirrors.
Disastrous end of the race yesterday. We saw him bobble a little bit. I thought he had a puncher going down. Communicated with the team this morning. They said, no, just a fuel pickup problem, which doesn't really relate to the spin, other than the fact maybe when he came through Canada, loaded the car, had no power to work with, and just went for a lazy spin there, but lost a bundle of points.
Well, when you're right on the limit like that, and if you've got that engine stumbles for whatever reason, that's enough to just sort of pitch you around a little bit. But Ferretti able to ease away from Dial down at the end of the long front straight here. And now back up front, watching this group as they head toward turn 3. This is such an important corner because it launches you onto one of the fastest sections of this track.
It's an Acura 1-2, young Matt Campbell, the Aussie driver. How impressive has he been? Really put the heat on Dane Cameron yesterday. Couldn't quite make it work, but Dane said, I knew that Campbell was really strong in the brake zones. I had to defend. Trying to find his rhythm and catch those two Acuras that lead the pack.
Meanwhile, there they are, those two Acuras looking solid up through turn 3. Campbell looks like he's made up just a little bit of ground. The Porsche from Wright Motorsports closing in here at Road America. Today's coverage is being brought to you in partnership with BP Racing Fuel, with Acura, and with Lamborghini. One of the reasons Campbell closing up on that group is he just set fast lap of the race, Cal, at a 2:09.1. And that's comfortably quicker than anybody else turned. Next fastest lap is 4/10 off.
Yeah, he looks menacing right now, to be honest with you. Key is going to be the setup. What did you run with? Are you on a full dry setup? Are you thinking that the rain is going to return? So many variables here today in these conditions. Tough for the teams that are in championship contention to make the right calls.
Absolutely, and this team is in championship contention for the Pro-Am category. And particularly for Anthony Imperato, he's had a couple of co-drivers, this young man and another equally impressive guy named Dennis Olsen, that have sort of rotated through with him, but both of them incredibly competent, and that has really worked with a very talented Anthony Imperato to have them right up the sharp end of things. But I was going to say, in these cool, damp conditions, and especially if we do get some rain, Porsches historically, with the engine over the drive wheels, can be pretty effective in the wet.
They can. I think they'd have to say they're the favorites, but the Acura NSX has performed really well over the last couple of years in wet conditions. I think the big question mark is around our championship contenders for the overall title. Ferraris have not liked the wet conditions. Last year we saw them really struggle up in Canada. Bentley the same way.
May have a couple of different types of dances going on down in pit lane for a few of the teams, a little rain dance for the other ones. Let's keep it dry. That's what we want to see unfold right now. Cameron now has opened that margin up just, but again, looks like that front end is just giving up a little bit in spots, Cal.
Yeah, you're still searching for the grip. Just ran a 2:08.7. He's run a mid-7s yesterday, so the pace is about a second off what we saw yesterday. Super consistent laps that the 43 car had. The real-time racing team did a test here about a month ago. Really seemed to focus on the long green flag run. So when you got the track position, what you're looking for now is not having the tire degradation of your competitors. But these three are really stretching it out on Brent, who continues to run in the 4th position.
And I'll tell you one thing that's just awesome to listen to. We were on board with Cameron through the carousel and hear him balancing that car with that throttle. That's something you just have to do, and it's a touch, isn't it?
It really is, and it's a wonderful corner, but you just got to wait to load that left rear. Then when you get it set, and then you just start to squeeze on the power, so your maximum acceleration and full power coming off. But you're talking about Dane Cameron. He is a man with a lot of confidence right now. He leads another championship in a prototype class, and he has got his eye on the prize here. If he continues to do what they're doing right now, they can catch Marcelli and Barkey.
Dane Cameron in the real-time orange and white Acura NSX, just setting fast lap of the race at a 2:08.181, and has opened the margin up front to just a little bit over a second. And I'll tell you, we have seen this guy pull some stuff off that's just been remarkable already this weekend. But for his co-driver, Ryan, Mike Hedlund, it's been impressive this year as well.
He has, and he's watching Dane go around. You just told me a moment ago, Dane's not messing around in this race, and that's par for the course for Dane. But I want to go back to the last race at Watkins Glen, where in race 2, you found yourself in perhaps a similar position to where you're about to be, going out after the driver change in the overall lead, not just the class lead. And you would relish that chance to do it again here at Road America, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's still a long time left in Dane's stint, so we'll see how it goes. But hopefully we have a good pit stop like the guys have been doing all season. So, yeah, I could find myself in the lead, and we'll see what we can do again.
For this real-time team, this is a very important event. They're based very close by. Such history for the team at this racetrack. What's it like for you to be a part of it here this weekend?
It's kind of crazy because I've come up in the motorsport world watching the team. So it's amazing to be a part of it and seeing them, especially at their home track. Maybe getting win 100 today, we'll see. Don't want to put too much pressure on us, but we'll keep trying to execute and see where we end up.
What has Dane said about the track conditions? Everyone elected basically to go on the slick tires. Tire warmers probably help in that, but what has he said about what he's experiencing?
He said it's pretty good. It's to be expected. Stay off the curbs pretty much until enough people run over them to kick the water out. But he had a slight advantage, I think, starting on the outside, because it looked like Marcelli kind of had to high side the dry and wet line, so he kind of went into turn 1 a little slow, and that gave Dane the advantage, and he took advantage of it, and now we're in the lead.
Thanks for the time. Good luck in your stint.
No problem. Thank you.
Mike brings up a good point. Yesterday's win here in this Pro-Am category, real-time racing's 99th. And to hit that century mark here would be about as special as it gets for that team.
It would for that team. If P.D. Cunningham, the team owner and principal, I think nearly 40 of those victories were to P.D. Cunningham.
Exactly.
But he's had some great drivers drive for him over the years, particularly Pierre Kleinu, for example. So some stellar pilots, but that would be quite the number to hit, and 100, but it's not going to come easy here today.
And if you like history, in the second half of what's being used as the tech garage here, P.D. Cunningham in real time have brought out a moving history of the World Challenge Series here in the U.S. and his championship-winning Acura from the GT class many years ago, and so many other cars. They've really embraced this weekend in many ways, and Cameron continues to march away just a little bit, as does Campbell in terms of Marcelli. He just continues to inch closer. Last time by, Cal, he was within 0.6.
Yeah, it's really tightening up there for the second position on the road right now. It seems like Cameron's car has come into its zone a little bit. A lot of that comes down to your starting tire pressures and also what setup you have worked with. Maybe they went with a dry setup on the real-time racing number 43, and with these dry conditions, that's now coming to Dane a little bit. But the big question is the eye to the sky. Will we see any more rain here this afternoon before we see the checkers?
Looking through turn 8, heading into that never-ending carousel. Just love watching these cars work through here with the downforce they have. You still get that little bit of rotation, and then you just feed it throttle, and I mean, you go through the kink at ridiculous speeds here.
Oh, it's massive commitment, and you can see there with the lines just a little bit outside. Brent has been using that curb a little bit more circumspect that time, but using it all on the outside, and they're starting to dry out a little bit, and that will allow these drivers to get a little bit braver. But you see Tony Vilander there, still running in the 6th position, which is a bit of a surprise unless they've really gambled on a totally wet setup. I thought he would be able to stay with Ryan Dalziel up in front of him.
Yeah, and really Vilander right now, 2.5 seconds adrift of the Dalziel battle at this stage. And Alvaro will be liking knowing that, and especially the fact that he's got the number 3 of Soule, who's filling Vilander's mirrors right now and playing good wingman. He would love to get in front at that stage. And then Hinman is closing in just a little bit. Hinman just ran a 2:09.2, virtually matching Soule.
Look at Cameron though, new fast lap into the 7s, a 2:07.7, nearly half a second clear of the field. But here comes Soule making the move to the inside on Tony Vilander. Precious championship points being exchanged right there.
Yeah, that was massive. I mean, there's a chance that Vilander could clinch here this weekend. You were telling me as we were getting ready for this, and right now this is what they need to do to prevent that from happening.
Well, after the problems for Brent and Soucek yesterday, suddenly Vilander's lead blew up to 51 points. Well, there's 50 points on the table at the conclusion of today, so if he can maintain the same edge, that would seal the title. But right now, Brent and the number 9 Bentley are several positions ahead, and also there's a big manufacturers championship up for grabs as well. With the big day for Ferrari yesterday, it's now a 14-point lead, but the Bentleys are doing some good things here in front of them.
Absolutely right, and it's important to point out that the pro category cars, they get their points based on the overall finish. As we watch this pass one more time.
Yeah, just picked up the draft. You just really pull a big hole in the air when you come and climbing that hill up to the start-finish stripe. Soule timed it perfectly. Vilander chose not to defend the inside lane and is just settling in here. A long way to go. 40 to 50 minute mark in this race is when the pit lane window opens. And it's an 80-second pit lane delta. 4-tire change, refueling, and driver change has to take place during that. And sometimes that can make or break your race position in terms of how you execute that and how close you cut it.
Folks, just keep this in mind. When Calvin says there's an 80-second time to minimum time to execute that stop, that sounds like a long time, but just driving down pit lane eats up 46 seconds of that, correct? So it's a lot more snug than it might sound.
34 seconds, and the top teams are able to get everything done in about 30, so it gives you about a 4-second buffer to have the car sit still and then release it. But if anything goes wrong, you're suddenly outside of that and you're giving time away.
Yeah, when those stops happen and you're watching them, if the car drops and sits for a minute, that's a good job. If it drops and goes, they might be a little bit in trouble here. Looks like Parent finally able to put a few more car lengths between himself and Dial. That margin up between those two up to about 7/10 of a second. Not quite as intense for Parent. Now the question is going to be just what kind of pace are we going to see from Soule? Can he get up and take it after these guys? He's got to make up about 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed with Maxime Soule for he and Andy Soucek coming to this racetrack for the very first time. And throwing in the mix there, Daniel Serra put together a pole lap for the first round yesterday, 1.8 seconds clear of the field. That is absolutely ridiculous. He just nailed that and actually had a slightly faster lap going and had to abort it with a little mistake down in the Canada corner. But Daniel Serra, super impressive, filling in for Miguel Molina once again this weekend.
And this is interesting. This is Scott Hargrove, the number 58.
That was close. That was really, really close with Martin Fuentes.
Yeah.
Loses a position there to Colin Brown with that little error. Just suddenly wasn't sure that Hargrove was going to clear the corner and chose to go down the escape road briefly.
It's a good little battle, though, that Hargrove's dealing with Fuentes. And then Brown, as you said, Brown has snuck through at this stage. And it was interesting, before the weekend started, Martin, and we heard it at the top of the show, he said, if we can get Mark comfortable, he said, I run here pretty well. I think I can represent fairly well with the pros. And then he had a really tough qualifying run. That's really put him behind a bit.
It has. And looking at some of these lap times, we see Hargrove running lap times in the 10s and the 11s, where you got Dane Cameron running laps in the 7s. So I have to believe that maybe the Wright Motorsports team have gambled on the setup there for Scott Hargrove, banking on some rain.
Well, and looking at it, you know, the twitchiness that we've seen out of the real-time car. Well, let's watch this one more time.
Just gets deep into the brakes, gets on the curb a little bit. Wasn't sure he was going to clear him, so nice job by Martin there. Totally committed. You can see how close it was. Almost heard the little chatter of the rears locking up. Now he's in trouble.
Oh boy, oof, that was close. That's where he had a moment in qualifying that hurt him.
That's a difficult corner. Yes. The entry to turn 14 is so tricky. It's very bumpy, and as the track starts to dry out, you really commit to the entry there.
So Martin gathers it up again, but has now lost a lot of track distance. In fact, Greg Leafage has been able to move through in the Turner BMW. So now Fuentes and Issa have it all to do once again as they work up through the field one more time here at Road America. Meanwhile, the battle up front continues to be led by Dane Cameron. You know, Cal, we were having that discussion right off the start of the race when we saw the run that Marcelli got on the brakes into one and about the downforce here with the pace we're seeing from Dane as this track is dry, and the fact it took him a little bit longer, it looked for that car to get a little bit more stable. I wonder if exactly what you're talking about. Some of the guys have gone for a much more rain setup, but if these guys went full dry and trimmed it out.
Within a few tenths of what they ran here yesterday, where the setup would have been full dry. So that's what I suspect. And we talked about Hargrove running towards the tail end of the field right now, not running the sort of lap times you'd expect out of that car, and certainly a Scott Hargrove, one of the fastest drivers in the field. So have to wonder if they've gambled in the other direction and they're just praying that the sky's open once again and we get some rain here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Hargrove's best lap, as you said, was at a 2:10.1. And, I mean, Cameron right now, his last lap, or his best lap thus far, a little bit out of reach of everybody, but everybody else up front running 2:08, so fairly telltale, isn't it? Campbell, he had closed that up to 0.6 of a second, and now Marcelli's been able to stabilize that and, in fact, open it back up again to 1.3. The way that Campbell came back on there after running that curb, you can use all that curb and a little more. He seems to be doing exactly that, but boy, the way he returned on it was almost like the car just shut up a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes the drivers will just do that, and you want to get away from the dirt and the edge of the road where there is a little bit more moisture. Make sure you keep those tires as dry as you possibly can. But I thought Campbell was really setting up to be a major threat, but now these Acuras have found their sweet spot, particularly the 43 car. It's kind of lost touch a little bit, but Imparado's not out of this Pro-Am Championship chase either. The guy that he shares this car with, he's 21 points behind, so if he could sweep the table, that would tie him for the lead, whatever anyone else does. So lots to play for here. This round and 2 rounds in Vegas.
Plenty of points available, which means everybody has to execute. You can't have any kind of significant error or failure here.
Dane Cameron has really liked this opportunity to run for the overall lead. Certainly we saw the car in the lead when Mike Headland jumped aboard at Watkins Glen and held that lead for many laps, impressing everyone, I feel, with his pace and resilience against Daniel Serra, a much more experienced teammate. But here this weekend, so Marcelli, Cameron on the front row, and Cameron leading here overall.
Sort of rinse and repeat here at Road America as we watch Dane Cameron building that margin up, 2.5 seconds last time by over Marcelli, then Campbell, and the 2 Acuras in that Porsche up front looking very strong. Surprising here to see the number 61 of Vilander mired back in 7th place. And Ryan, Enrico Diano has to have some sort of concern, I would think, unfolding about the pace of that Ferrari.
Hey, let's check in with him, team manager for Ferrari, Enrico. We're wondering what Tony's dealing with in the car. We've seen him slip back just a little bit so far in his stint.
Yeah, he's improving a little now. The track conditions at the start, obviously, still a wet surface, cold for temperatures, some instability in the braking, lack of top speed. Obviously not an ideal situation, so he's falling behind. We're not taking any risks, so obviously the cars that got by us had a faster pace. He let him go, and I think decide the result, obviously, in the second stint after the pit stops.
Setup-wise, how did you approach this race with partially wet conditions, the chance for more rain? What did you guys elect to do?
We made some small changes, assuming that at some point in the race we're going to see rain. Luckily, things cleared up quite nicely for the start, but we're running a bit of a compromise setup. It's definitely not a full dry and not a full wet setup.
And lastly, you mentioned the second stint. Because many of the cars ahead of you are Pro-Am and we expect the more inexperienced drivers in, does that allow you to be a bit more patient here?
Yeah, definitely. We're not in a position to take any risk, to be aggressive. We've got a nice, comfortable lead in the championship. We probably won't clinch it after today. We're just going to play it safe, be conservative, finish the race, keep the car in one piece, and define things in Vegas.
Thanks, Enrico.
Thank you.
That explains a lot. Compromise setup and conservative approach to things. Not being too conservative is Alvaro Perez.
He scares me. Just watching where he's placing that Bentley on the racetrack. I know how high risk that is in terms of his approach into the King earlier in the race and now his exit of the King, but he's got the confidence. He is such a talented driver, able to just put the car on the line and extract those margins that are there and available if you're brave enough to do it.
Dial is certainly keeping him honest in that DXDT Usulco Security National Mortgage Mercedes, splitting those 2 Bentleys right now. Every time Perrin eases out just a little bit, Dial comes right back after him.
He does, but this man is on the charge. Maxime Soulet haven't gotten around Tony Vilander. He's just set his next target on Ryan Dial and his teammate, Alvaro Perrin. Last time across the street, Soulet had the fastest lap on that lap at a 2:08 flat. Marginally quicker than Dane Cameron, but still about 3/10 off the fastest lap of the race.
But it was a full second quicker on that last lap than Dial, wasn't it? So that gives you an idea of the pace he's got right now.
Well, Dial's pace is somewhat being limited, I feel, by Alvaro Perrin up ahead of him. The problem is you now get into that area, kind of the wake of the car in front of you, from the aero wash. These GT3 cars are so aero sensitive, they need the air getting through those massive front dive planes and front splitters to give the car the frontal downforce that it needs to turn into these high-speed corners.
Listen to the balance here.
Look at the steering input. The problem is there, if it snaps on you, you've got massive steering input. It's so hard to get your arms back around and catch it. That's why it's difficult to commit when you've got big steering inputs and you're loading that rear at the same time. If it goes, really hard to recover.
You have to have mighty quick hands. Oh boy, Soleil has just reeled these guys in. It is now a 3-car battle for this 4th overall spot.
3 cars been quick here this weekend. Baptista played the teammate game yesterday, just sitting behind Soucek, but looked a little bit quicker. I think Soulet may be doing the same thing. Sometimes you can have identical setups on 2 cars underneath the same awning for a team, yet they're just reacting a little bit different to the conditions. We're talking small margins here. It's not like he's running Alvaro down and just taking off.
No, not at all. And now Colin Brown in the other DXDT Mercedes, the CrowdStrike entry, and he'll be turning over to George Kurtz, all over the back of Scott Hargrove here for the 9th spot.
He'll be picking up the draft. Inches up on the back bumper of that Porsche. Can he pop to the inside? Is he close enough? Not quite.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me that this number 58 machine, which Pat Long had done such a great job with qualifying for the first race. After starting off, they said that they were really behind in terms of setup when they got here, and they dialed one up, and it was a pretty good one, you know, relative to everybody else. Not Sarah, of course, because that was something special. But they had a good one and a decent race yesterday. I'm surprised to see them back. I would think that if our Ferry Ferrari is running a somewhat compromised setup, they might be in a very compromised setup.
I think so, and it's hard to pass with these GT3 cars. So I think if you have poor track position, why not roll the dice a little bit? Just say, okay, we're going to struggle to go forward. Let's see if the pack come back to us. If we get adverse conditions and our car setup suits it a little bit better. Cameron has just reset fastest lap of the race as he now stretches that margin up front to 3.5 seconds. As we discussed last night, enjoying that chicken dinner that P.D. Cunningham does here as his ritual. If you suddenly execute, Dane has a good run. Maybe Mike Hedlund's going to have the overall lead again to defend from some of the pro drivers later in this race, but still a long way to go. Just 8 minutes away from the pit lane window opening.
Working through Canada corner, up through Billy Mitchell. It's a great onboard shot right now from that Mercedes of Colin Brown, with him chasing. The same scenario here with Soulet as he's reeled him in. And you wonder at what point here suddenly Dial's attention shifts from Perrin in front to the yellow trim Bentley to the blue trim Bentley behind.
From a strategy standpoint, totally different with the pro cars. Soulet, they can put Baptista in. His teammate, he's equal speed, and same for Alvaro and Andy Soucek. It's up to Thomas Blum and the engineers and strategists with the K-Pax team to decide what is the best option. We talk about the undercut and overcut in these races where there's a pit stop and a tire change. The undercut means you come in early, get the fresh Pirelli P0s, theoretically more grip. Before, the concern was getting tire temperature. How quickly can you do that compared to someone staying out on worn rubber, but with tire temperature? Well, now with the tire warmers, that changes. So typically, the undercut is going to be a little bit quicker.
Those tire warmers certainly open up strategy options, certainly, don't they?
Conversely, for the Pro-Am combinations, you got the pros starting here today. You want to keep them in as long as you can to maximize their speed. DL getting really close to Perrin.
Yeah, big time. And Soule got close, as you said, then hit that wash and had to drift back just a little bit. Again, Perrin taking it right to the edge through the kink. But I'm impressed with that Mercedes of DXDT and Dial. He's been right there behind Perrin an awful lot, and it doesn't seem to be affecting him as much.
Now, the Mercedes is a great platform. As you've said many times this year, it seems to be strong everywhere. Dial, great sports car racer. This is a great little team led by Richard Rader. He's worked with Ryan before when he ran Toyota Atlantic Championship with great success for the Sierra team many years ago.
Marcelli matching Cameron that time, actually just a tick of the clock quicker than Cameron was. Campbell a little bit off of those two. And back to this great scrap.
Dane's car, when he went through turn 1 on that lap, didn't look quite as balanced and as settled as earlier in the going, so probably going to see these drivers stay out for another 10 to 15 minutes. I'd imagine you'll see Cameron and Marcelli stay in the cars as long as possible. I'm just going to be curious to watch that gap between Cameron and Marcelli, whether it reduces any. If Marcelli keeps the car balanced underneath him, Cameron suffers from any tire degradation, that could really put the heat on the real-time racing team in terms of execution on the pit stop.
So this battle right now for the 4th spot continues, but up front, Dane Cameron continues to lead sway. Acura 1-2 in Road America. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Purple Monkey Garage and with Ferrari. There you see it, the 2 Acuras, and here's the first of those 2. Cameron, and yeah, you're right, it's looking a little twitchy again, isn't it?
Well, he's certainly pushing. It's
yes.
Maybe not going to look as comfortable towards the end of the tire stem, but just watch the first and second sector. He's still inching away from Marcelli a little bit. I thought there may have been a crossover period, but the one thing that was so impressive here yesterday was the consistency of the run for this real-time car. Just maintained its balance and its speed throughout the course of this race, both for Headland and Cameron.
Well, let's take a look. 3.6 seconds last time through was the margin for Cameron back to Marcelli, and it's 3.8. So he was able to dig down, find 2 more tenths, and that's a that's a good point. Not always when you're really pushing, a car's not going to be smooth. It's going to twitch a little bit, but that's because you're extracting every bit out of it.
Certainly Kyle Marcelli was extracting every bit out of the track limitations there. He may have been just outside. And basically they're saying if you gain any advantage, give it back. It's tough to do on the clock in terms of giving it back in that sector time, but certainly if you gain a position, you're expected to give it back if you're out of bounds to do so. I think in these conditions where it's a little bit damp, if you run a bit wide, suddenly you can't just hold it there. You've got to give the car its head, and otherwise you'll be spinning it around.
Yeah, you think the officials certainly understand that and will give them a little bit more of a grace period, perhaps, before they start throwing down warnings and the like. And Marcelli, last few laps, he's been able to run just a tick quicker than Campbell as well in that margin, almost identical. His deficit to Cameron, 3.8, is what he's got in hand over Campbell.
And it may look pretty smooth and easy for these 2 front-running Acuras, but I will say that both of those drivers are executing to the absolute maximum. It is precision driving at its best in these conditions, and when you got a chasing young man like Matt Campbell, he's already a Le Mans winner. He's already won Bathurst. He is not intimidated by the competition, and he has been digging deep in that Porsche, and there's nothing he can do about it because the 2 guys ahead of him are not blinking. They're not making any errors.
Not in the least. He is quick, and of course, then they built up an 8-second margin back to drivers like Parent and Dial and Soulé. So pretty impressive what this lead trio is doing, to be sure.
Cameron still stretching it on this. First 2 seconds, it looked like he's picked up another 2 or 3 tenths on Kyle Marcelli.
Real time in Road America, it just tends to click for those guys here, and they are doing that. There's Mike Hedlund, who is getting ready as we are approaching the opening of the mandatory pit window. He's just getting everything plugged in and ready to go here. You would anticipate Dane staying out just a little bit, but just in case there's something that happens, that driver better be ready.
You got to be ready. You suddenly feel something in the car or something goes amiss, you got to be ready to jump in. That could be as early as at the end of this lap.
We're getting reports regarding some radar activity that might be having the possibility of a little of that moisture coming back here. It's been possible all day, but looks a little stronger here. Soulé looking pretty stout.
He is. He's right close to Dial now. He would love to make that move before the round of pit stops. Expect Dial to try and maximize his stint before he turns it over to David Askew. These are the type of corners where you just lose the downforce a little bit. It's kind of the aero wash, so as the car the air floats over the car in front, it's not hitting the front of yours. Conversely, down the straightaways, you're not getting the drag effect. So it's a benefit there, but hurts you in the corners.
The issue when you get in that wash, you lose some of the air on the nose. You start to scrub those fronts a little bit. They tend to slide a little bit more. That heats them up. They lose their efficiency. And if you don't eventually back off, you can damage them.
Well, that's all about the tire degradation this racetrack will give you anyway on the best of days. It's pretty old in its nature. There's a little bit of patching around the various corners, but it's recognized as a high tire deg circuit.
It's funny when you hear it's lowish grip, but high tire deg. And is that primarily because with low grip, the car tends to slide a lot?
It's sliding, and that what type of surface is it? It's a bit like Laguna Seca, same deal there. Doesn't give you a ton of grip, so you think, oh, you're not using them up. Well, guess what? You're sliding the car. When you slide across, it's like almost like a cheese grater. You're starting to pull that rubber off the carcass.
All right, pit window is officially open. Soulé continues his attack right now. Attack might be a bit of a strong word, just his relentless pursuit, if you will. Trying to figure a way by Dial, maybe get up and help Parent just a little bit here. The 58 is in. The problem is there's not a lot they can do, is there, in terms of if they've got the setup off just a little bit and going with too much of a rain-related setup. So, but nonetheless, if he may have just used those tires up just a little bit and get a new set on and get Pat Long behind the wheel.
Yep, they're just fingers crossed that the racetrack and the conditions come to them. We're assuming maybe Scott was just struggling with balance, but certainly looking at his lap times, I would have to think he's on a compromised setup.
Well, and from some of the reports we're getting, and
oh, look at this.
That's
Pat
interesting.
Long looks like he may be struggling a bit. See him limping
that
to
right
the car.
foot, yeah. That could be too. Just got a wise sage word from a driver who's doing a little producing for us here. He's keeping his shoe dry. That's the throttle foot. Don't want that slipping.
I like it.
Yep. Yep.
That is spot on, and they're all little tricks of the trade that drivers are employing.
That's nice. They got down and get to sit for just a little bit. Great stop. If they time the exit right, all right, here we go. You would think Cameron will stay out, and he does.
Just putting that car right on the line now. If you got any life left in those tires, you're going to use it up because there is a tire change, 4-tire change here. Unlike GT4 competition in our championship, GT3 full 4-tire change. So you're not saving them for your teammate. It's go time. It's hammer time right now. Try and extend that margin as much as you can before you turn it over to your crew and your co-driver to try and bring it home.
That stop from Hargrove to Long 1.2 seconds over the minimum. Not bad, not great. Here comes Soule. Vilander in as well, Cal.
Yeah, and Serra's just been so impressive. We have to see if he can do anything about the Bentleys. Daniel Serra's pole lap here yesterday, just a magical lap. He found the setup, and Daniel on his first visit to this racetrack laid it down.
Mightily impressive indeed, and that car heading right toward Ryan Marine.
Yes, I got some interesting intel speaking with Darren Law a moment ago about K-Pax Racing and what they have elected to do strategy-wise. They have also put compromised kind of hybrid setups on their cars, but the 3 is more of a dry setup than what we've seen on the 9, and that's why we've seen the race kind of coming to the 3 as Rodrigo Baptista brings that car in. In the background, we've got the R. Ferry driver change going on in the tires as well. It's been a really remarkable weekend for their driver, Daniel Serra, who had never been here before but had that blistering pole lap for race number 1. He's been the quicker of the 2, a bit surprising given Tony Vilander's experience here. But Tony was quite candid with us, speaking in the post-race interview yesterday, saying he's never really got his head around this place. He did a nice job on that opening stint. Now we'll see what Serra can do behind the wheel. The Bentley is gone. Now the Ferrari is as well.
And that change to Baptista, 81.1. Vilander, 81.6.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Just over a second outside of the margins here. Dane Cameron continues to lead as he goes through the final corner. Still got some time on the clock to play with.
I was just wondering about Serra's lap being so much faster. Was that just a case of his first time, never been here before, a young guy, just doesn't know any better?
I think so. And he searched for a little bit more and finally just got in a bit too deep into Canada corner, but he laid down an even more impressive middle sector on that lap, so the potential was there for even more. But I think he certainly showcased his abilities. Never raced here. I said, did you do any sim work? He said, not until Monday at race week. He said, I've just been really busy with a couple of championships that he's running in down in Brazil. So we sit on board with Dane Cameron as he's coming towards the end of another remarkable run here today.
Meanwhile, Alvaro Parent comes in. We'll be turning over to Andy Suchek. And just to back up what Ryan said, I was chatting with Tony earlier in the weekend. Yeah, he was very honest about it and just said, for some reason, this is not a track. He likes it. Said, I've just never really figured out, I guess, how to be super fast around this place. Probably the only one.
Yeah.
He's awfully good.
6 wins on the year.
Yeah, exactly. But you appreciate that level of honesty here. And Parent comes in, hits the marks. You've talked about it before. Very busy on that right side of the car at the start of these stops.
It is with the right-hand drive Bentley. You can see the refuelers trying to get in. We actually had a flash fire here on this car at VIR when the refueler got bumped with the driver change.
Continuing that tire change here. This is the team that's really in many ways set the standard in terms of stops, particularly earlier this season. Cars down, quick on the release. Let's see what he does. Yeah, not bad.
81 seconds, second outside the mark. Trent Hinman, another great job, had a win earlier today. GT4 competition, turns it over to Till Bechtelsheimer. Cameron continues to lead up front.
And that margin, 5.2 seconds back to Marcelli. Campbell, the all now fourth with everybody else doing their stops.
So for Cameron, he will not have time to do 2 more laps. It will be at the end of this lap. He needs to peel in.
Marcelli staying out. Interesting, the Colin Braun to George Kurtz exchange a little short. Now, I don't think they used their joker yesterday, so they might be okay.
Yeah, 3 tons underneath. You're allowed a 1 second joker, but you can only use it once per weekend. Those are the margins you have to really execute, I feel. There's a software program they work with. There's a timer that will indicate to the driver if he has to need to slow down a little bit, if he's underneath that minimum delta. Hard into the brake zones. Final lap of this stint for Dane Cameron. Hasn't put a foot wrong all weekend long. I know he's a bit frustrated not to get the pole position. Had a little bobble into turn 14.
Yep.
It would have been his hot lap, and that was enough to give Marcelli the pole by the slimmest of margins. But since that time, rock solid.
Yeah, and again, that move he made, that late race restart yesterday was that's what Dane Cameron is becoming known for. Is just decisive. I compare him with James Weaver in just being just stunning in working, whether it's traffic or just passes for position. He's decisive and executes incredibly well and fearlessly as well.
Just tenacious and just a great instinct about where to put the car, where to place it. Great with the setup too. His dad, Ricky Cameron's here this weekend working with his brother, Stephen Cameron Racing. So we've been brought up in a racing family, so that allows him to understand a race car, what the setup needs. So you can be the fastest driver in the world, but if you can't relate to your engineer what you need from the race car, you're not going to go far. And Dane seems to tick all of the boxes.
And he does. And he should be ticking the pit box here this lap.
You better.
And yes, he's going to carry it as deep as he possibly can before he hits that pit speed limit. And after the speed that they've been running on the racetrack for, what, 55 minutes, this is at an absolute wall. And it's just one of the longest pit lanes that you can imagine. And he's now up to the main part of the pit area, just now reaching it. And Ryan, for you standing there waiting for him to get there, it takes a while.
Yeah, it sure does. We heard the call that he's on pit lane, and just now he comes into my line of sight. Dane Cameron going to turn it over to Mike Hedlund. These two first teamed up this season at Sonoma, and they've managed to win all but one of the races that they've run together so far. You see all the signatures on the front of that race car. Had the big parade in Elkhart Lake earlier in the weekend, and a lot of fans got a chance to see these cars up close and personal and sign the race car. But now it's go time for these crews. Looking a little bit further back, you see the Racer's Edge Acura. So these are the top two in that Pro-Am Championship this season, and now they're doing battle here on pit lane. Over there, Kyle Marcelli giving way to Martin Barkey. It's going to be a duel for sure. These cars very fast as well in the overall. The fuel man gets the tap on the shoulder. Little trouble getting going, but Mike Hedlund is gone.
Well, let's see. Relatively close to pit out. A little long, Cal.
It is a little long. 3.5 seconds long, and that's allowed Barkey to be maybe a little bit closer to Mike Hedlund. Marcelli 22.1, so about 1.5 seconds advantage there. The servicing was done.
Yeah.
It was just the release of Mike Hedlund. Felt they had a little bit in hand, didn't want to cut it too close, as Hedlund now relatively cold tires again. They're putting tires that are coming from the warming blankets on the race car at the last possible moment, so should get up to speed pretty quickly.
On the other hand, that third car in this Pro-Am Q battle, fabulous stop, right on 80 seconds for Imperato getting in with Campbell all over the back of Marcelli's Acura as they left pit lane. Now we see with the pit window closed and everybody comes around and we cycle through who's going to be where in terms of this, but that stop by Wright Motorsports getting Campbell out and Imperato in was really strong.
Well, that's significant for the championship as well. It's significant for Dane Cameron, who shares this car with Mike Hedlund. Came into this race 11 points behind Marcelli and Barkey. There's a 7-point swing between first and second. There's a 10-point swing like we saw yesterday. So if Imperato can get around Barkey, that aids Dane Cameron and really hurts Barkey and Marcelli. It'd be a 1-point gap at the end of the day, but with a lot of time on the clock.
There is a lot of time on the clock, and we continue to get indications that not all the time left on this track will have this track as grippy as it is right now. Haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to say it's a for sure thing, but it's looking like it's definitely a possibility. And you can see Hedlund's margin, but behind him, when you see Marcelli come into view, he has got Imperato, or Barkey into view, he has got Imperato right in his mirrors as Hedlund coming up the hill.
Just looking at a weather app that says rain starting in about 9 minutes here, so for about 20 minutes. So a lot of potential in the air right now.
Got to tell me what that app is, because mine doesn't say that.
So for real time, they'll be reading yours.
Exactly. On board now with Hedlund.
He's just rock solid, just so impressed when he jumped aboard this car at his home circuit, admittedly, Sonoma, but was very, very impressive. Delivered a great performance that weekend, but he just seems to be able to withstand the pressure, hit his marks, be consistent. That confidence is growing each and every weekend as they rack up the wins.
I think Mike is one of those drivers that just really understands downforce and is able to maximize it really solidly here.
This should be a
Watching
great
Sarah
battle.
Baptista going at it here. This is going to be a good one, that's for sure. Looking back at the R. Ferry Ferrari, now in the hands of Danielle Serra from Rodrigo Baptista in the number 3 Bentley. This is the battle for 5th overall, and it is on. And Serra, he just set fast lap for this one at a 2:07.574 a couple of laps ago. He is flying. That great battles unfolding everywhere, though, on this track. Let's get down to Ryan.
Well, Dane Cameron held the overall lead throughout your stint, started on the outside of the front row. Take us through first the move that you made to take the lead of the race.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about that one, honestly, since we qualified second. It was kind of what I wanted to do. Then I was a little unsure with the changeable conditions. It was pretty high tension on pit lane. Nobody really knew what tires to run. Looked like it was going to dry pretty quickly, so, less more rain was coming. That's why everybody, I think, started on slicks for the most part. So, but honestly, when we did the formation, I saw some dry stuff that was out there from the race before, I think, where people were running offline that was almost a little drier than the inside, so I figured we'll give that a go around the outside and see if we could hang on to her. And I knew the exit curb was dry, so I knew I could kind of surf it around to the outside, and that worked out perfectly. And this is kind of the first time I'd actually driven the NSX in changeable conditions like that, but no, it was beautiful. So nice to have a little bit of lead there, and we'll see if Mike can seal the deal.
What are conditions like for Mike to deal with now?
They're pretty much dry now, to be honest. There's no dramas. Maybe a little bit of moisture on the way into Canada Corner in the bottom, and that's about it. It came pretty good, so that was kind of fun. A little bit tough being the first car to approach everything at speed. You didn't really know what to expect. Then once you get the first lap out of the way, then you were kind of just banking on the fact it was going to be a little better every lap and able to get that little bit of a margin there. But yeah, could have gone a whole lot better, and hopefully we can finish up here with number 100 at home for Peter.
Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
What a special moment if they can pull this off and win the Pro-Am class and get real-time its 100th win at the home track. That's pretty special stuff, and Hedlund doing a very nice job right now. Margin back to Barkey in the number 80 MBRP Performance Exhaust. Racer's Edge Acura, 3.8 seconds. But Imperato, right there, that's how close that battle for second is overall right now and in Pro-Am.
And that's a big position for Martin Barkey to hang on to. Right now, the lead would be down to 4 points, but it'd be down to 1 point if he loses this position to the Porsche right behind him. But Martin Barkey's rebounded nicely. I don't think he was that impressed with himself in terms of his qualifying run here yesterday. And I think he had dogged determination starting today to step up a little bit, and he's doing a great job right now, maintaining that gap to the front and keeping Imperato at bay.
Imperato using every ounce of that exit curve through Canada Corner.
Been watching his teammate.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, Mike Hedlund finds himself at the front of the overall queue. Last lap was a 2:10.6. Barkey's marginally quicker.
Sector 2 is where Barkey is quicker. He pulled half a second on Hedlund through Sector 2. Sector 2 starts on the brakes over turn 5, all the way over to the exit of the King. So Hedlund can't afford to relax too much, otherwise he's going to give a little bit of incentive to Martin Barkey to keep pushing.
No, Martin just took about 8 tenths. Call it 7 tenths off of Hedlund. Yeah, exactly right. As they came through, that margin's now down to 3.2 seconds.
Well, his pace is being forced from behind.
Exactly.
This could become a 3-car battle for the lead unless Hedlund can respond here. As you said, 7 tenths out of that lap. 5 laps, that lead would be gone at the same pace.
Well, as Martin Barkey now has his head down for a couple of different reasons, let's hear from the gentleman who started from the overall pole.
Yeah, Martin is certainly driving hard right now, showing some pretty good lap times, Kyle, but you just had a chance to chat with him briefly on the radio. What was your message to him?
Just trying to give him some feedback on what I was doing. Obviously the weather was a big question today, and we thought for sure it was going to be a rain race. We made some big swings at the car thinking it was going to be a rain race, and here we are in the dry. So it's behaving a little bit differently today.
Sounds like a possible little technical glitch there, so we'll get back to it. But that's fairly telling, isn't it, that they did make a big swing at it and have that car set up for a much more damp conditions here, compromised setup, etc. And right now, Imperato trying to figure out a way to deal with it. But with that setup on the car, you've been talking about it, Barkey's finding speed.
He's doing a great job, and looked like Headland responded in the middle sector. He's trimmed a couple of tenths off his personal best there. But these two cars are coming at him. Imperato looks to maybe be the fastest car of this trio right now, but he's obviously got to get around Barkey before he can think about going after the leader.
Well, one of the things that I'm noticing, and you know, on areas where you're always going to use the curb regardless, Martin Barkey certainly is, but in some of the areas he's running those fast laps, if you will, but not getting anywhere near as wide and risky up on curbs and the like. So he may have a little bit of a margin to be able to play with here as he continues to try and fend off Anthony Imperato in the battle for second. Everybody chasing Mike Headland. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Optima Battery, with Bentley, and with Porsche. Continue to eyeball this battle. Behind them, to the tune of about 7 seconds, is Suchek in the number 9 Bentley with his teammate Baptista right behind him in the number 3. Then Serra really close, within 4 tenths of Baptista. Here's that battle as we look out from the back of the number 3 Bentley and then red R Ferry Ferrari.
Well, you know that Rodrigo Baptista is going to do everything humanly possible to keep that Ferrari behind him. There's a manufacturer's title on the line. There's a points buffer potentially for his teammates, Suchek and Perrin in the number 9 car. So he's got to figure out a way. Serra deep on the brakes, looks to the outside. This is down into turn 8. Not sure there's anywhere to go with this move, though.
It's a matter of trust right there, and at the last he decided not to tuck in just a little bit.
Well, Baptista was just protecting the inside lane there down into the brake zone, and Serra said, no problem, just take it in deeper to the right. But unfortunately for that sequence of corners, you end up on the wrong side by the time you get to the carousel.
Certainly Serra is showing some pretty significant pace. As you've seen, he's got fast lap of the race. You have to believe he can stay this close that long. If he can get through, he can ease away. But, as we often said, catching him, different than passing here. And Baptista's developed into a very savvy racer.
Well, even if he's delaying the inevitable for Baptista, the longer he can do this, that just means that Suchek's got a little bit more margin and time to wait for that red Ferrari to get to him if that indeed develops.
We're now into the last 30 minutes of this 12th round of the championship.
Bentley a little bit stronger down the straightaways, pulls the Ferrari a little bit and up into the brake zones.
Oh,
looks pretty dramatic from that rear-facing camera in
sure
terms
does.
of the balance of the Ferrari up and over the curbs there.
Twitch. Long moraine sweep here. You can see there again, Baptista just a little bit better in terms of straight line, or he got a better drive out of turn 3. And that gives him the opportunity. Ran a little deep there at 5, lost some of that momentum. Daniel Serra in the R Ferry Ferrari in full attack mode right now on the number 3 Bentley of Rodrigo Baptista. He's taken a look at him a couple of times, hasn't been able to execute, does this move, he did it on the last lap, tries to go out then under at turn 8, but it always puts you on the wrong side, Cal, doesn't it, going into the carousel?
It does, and I think with the speed of that Bentley, it just stretches its legs a little bit down these long straightaways here. And that's enabling Baptista to keep Serra at bay, because Serra's fastest lap is a 2:07.5, and he's running low 9s behind Baptista. So he's got to be getting frustrated. Mike Hedlund continues to lead, but that gap is shrinking. He's leading overall and in Pro-Am. But he's just got to stay focused, and it looks like Barkey has dropped Imperato in a big way. They are really tight. Suddenly that gap has exploded from what was 6/10 last time they crossed the stripes. I'm not sure if Imperato had a bit of a move, didn't make it stick, or he's had a mistake. Either way, the gap has grown.
Yeah, it has. Hedlund was 2.5 clear of Barkey the last time by. We'll track that one as they flash through, and it's back up to 3.1.
Yeah, Hedlund's lap there, a 2:10.8, 11.4 for Barkey, and a 12.0 for Imperato. So something happened on that last lap.
You wonder here, as we're looking at the 96 Turner car, the AM car of Takeda, if maybe Imperato didn't get hung up working his way through on him.
Quite possibly. Sometimes for the cars that are being lapped, it's impossible to just hit the disappear button. You lose big chunks of time here dealing with that, as we see Baptista using every inch of the road a little bit more. Nicely mown grass and the odd puddle, a bit of debris and mud up on the windshield of that Ferrari.
Oh, sorry, mate. Well, and the thing is, you were talking about that traffic. So you try and manage traffic, and you know, if you've got the opportunity, you might back off to try and catch them at the right spot or whatever. But when one, you're being hounded, and two, if you just get that traffic at the wrong spot in a very tight, twisty section of track like this,
look
there's
at
not a lot you
Baptista.
can do.
He gets balked. Serra gets the run, but Baptista has to defend. Serra takes it in super deep, tries to get to the outside. This could be a big move there, elbow to elbow through turn 8. Little nudge. I could see that one developing. That Turner Motorsports BMW is in not the right place for Baptista. He lost a lot of speed through 7, and Serra tried to pounce.
And he pounced, but Rodrigo said there's a lot of paved runoff out there. I'm going to make you use every ounce of it. He was able to hang on. That is tough door handle to door handle racing.
It really is, but you wouldn't expect any different.
No.
Championships winding down, big titles on the line here.
And you know what? I wonder if Baptista's sort of aggression on the exit of that turn, there wasn't a little flashback to Watkins Glen going through his mind going, yeah, we're going to race you.
Yeah, it's very true. His teammate got turned pretty aggressively by Tony Vilander, so not a lot of love lost between the 61 and the 3 following that one. Tony went down to apologize. I hear he was rebuffed pretty quickly by the crew, like, you're better off walking away. Let's take another look at this. So the BMW balks Baptista a little bit. He protects the inside line. Serra throws it down into the brake zone, and Baptista gave him no room.
Here's the onboard look at it. Well, he got in deep.
He did. Well, Baptista, you don't want to overshoot the corner. You're compromising your line a little bit, so he did the right thing, but Serra saw opportunity, went for it. Was rebuffed pretty aggressively.
We're starting to see now the number 9 is Suchek has trimmed. It was almost 7 seconds back to him from Imperato down to Suchek. That's down to 3.3.
Well, that's significant because if he catches those Pro-Am cars and gets around, as you said earlier in the show, points are scored for overall. So if suddenly Suchek could get around some of those Pro-Am cars, Serra doesn't. That balloons out the gap, the spread between the 9 and the 61.
Absolutely, it's huge, and he is throwing down some laps. Suchek is at this stage, 2:09.6. Looking and hunting any opportunity. Still holds fast lap of the race. So far, this has stayed dry. Hedlund's keeping that margin to Barkey right in the just over. Whoa, Barkey really squirrely when he got in the brakes there, feeling that pressure from Imperato.
Rain has defined my weather app that says that the rain should have been here, but it isn't. So this is aiding all of the dry setup drivers in this race, like the 43. Hedlund maintains a nice comfortable margin under no pressure. Maybe he's just managing his tires and doing what he thinks is the appropriate pace to get us to the finish.
Well, my app is joining yours just a little bit. I had a lot larger margin before the rain came. It's now saying within 15 minutes on mine, so things could get real interesting here at Road America. Hedlund, that last lap, boy, he turned a good lap, dipped back down into the 209s, while Barkey up to a 2:10.9, and that margin now is back up to over 4 seconds. And Imperato a little slower still at a 2:11 flat. But Souček now 1.7 seconds back of Imperato. That is got some significant implications here.
Yeah, and they could almost, you could almost play a game here. Imagine this: Souček gets to those Pro-Am cars, gets around them. K-Pax, tell Baptista, don't go after him. Just keep Serra back there. Create the bigger point spread. A lot of potential teamwork can play out here. But for Mike Hedlund, as you said, just laid, I think that's the first lap I've seen him in the 109. So if I was him, if you got any pace right now, mate, use it. Try and establish a margin. So if you do get some precipitation, you can deal with it in a more casual manner rather than having pressure from behind.
The interesting thing
got around Barkey.
He did get him.
Thought I saw a change. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me. I thought I suddenly saw a Porsche. No, sorry.
That's okay, but here, look at Souček closing in. Now the interesting thing, Cal, the other element of all this, if we do get some rain, and if Barkey is in a car that is much more suited to rain than Hedlund is, if others are in cars much more suited to rain, suddenly this whole dynamic can change.
Yeah, the championships are so tight for the Pro-Am title. Barkey's just done a tremendous job here, withstanding the pressure. You got someone right on your tail, easy to crack. He hasn't cracked at all today.
He's doing a nice job. The other part of it is you're on slicks. If it's a light drizzle and you can muscle through that, a car that's got a better setup for that could be in good shape. If it starts to really rain, at what point do you say, we're not much left in this race, but we have got to get in, put reins on these cars. So this last 20 minutes will be pretty fascinating. Again, Imperato pushing so very hard, but look at Souček coming up. That margin now under a second at 9/10 for Souček.
Well, what you're dealing with here is a Bentley factory driver now coming up on drivers with nowhere near the level of experience, but they got very fast race cars underneath them. How will Souček deal with this? There is definitely potential here for Souček to get around these two cars, maybe or maybe not catch Hedlund, but for Daniel Serra to finish a handful of positions back with the championship position like it is right now with Vilander with a 51-point lead, that is crucial for the Bentley team and K-Pax to try and somehow stem the tide, keep the championship alive. Oh, and Souček makes the mistake.
And for these Pro-Am cars, where they finish in the overall isn't really meaningless. It's where you finish relative to your competition. So Imperato could move over, but he's in a battle for a potential race win. Interesting developments unfolding here at Road America. Hedlund continues to lead by just over 4 seconds, but Martin Barkey fending off Anthony Imperato, who has been in attack mode. But most importantly, here comes Souček, and Souček running really close. And then this moment, Cal.
Yeah, it looked like he got up on the curb a little bit on the apex of turn 7. That just ran him wide a little bit. Didn't really lose a ton of time. Most of the cornering load is out of the car by the time he got to the grass, but nonetheless, you can see how hard he is pushing. He's now caught Imperato, who has been gapped by Martin Barkey. Barkey matching the lap times of Hedlund to the thousandths of a second, identical lap times. 2:10.261 for the two leaders on the last lap.
Well, and Imperato just ran it way wide at the exit of the kink, threw up some mud. That's what cost him that big gap. But we are watching this amazing charge from the number 9 Bentley and the number 3 Bentley of Baptista playing wingman to perfection, Ryan.
Yeah, for sure. And Maxime Soulet is watching with rapt attention. I think you see Rodrigo in your car fighting with the Ferrari. You see Andy in the sister car fighting for overall positions. All of these crucial for that manufacturer championship.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't want to be in Rodrigo's shoes for the moment because there's 20 minutes to go and Daniel Serra is right behind him. So he's, and we're coming back on the others. So it's hard work, I think.
How do you, if you were in Rodrigo's shoes, how would you handle this catching some of the Pro-Am traffic, but the guys that you're chasing for the championship, your championship, are all around you. The Pro-Am guys are fighting for their championship.
Yeah, I mean that's racing. We have to pass the guys, but try not to interfere in their race as well. So yeah, I mean the Acuras and the Porsche were 20 seconds ahead of us, and yeah, I'm quite surprised with that because. But we've been struggling the whole weekend with grip, so we knew it was going to be difficult for us. So we tried to get the maximum point this weekend.
All right, well, best of luck the rest of the way. We'll let you get back to watching.
Thanks.
And it's been pretty fascinating. The interesting thing, after Imperato ran wide, there's a lot of mud that shot up in the air. I think if he dirtied up his tires, just killed his momentum, and that allowed Souček to work his way through. He's cleared him, and Souček is now taking off after Barkey, and now here comes Baptista as he is trying to get up and around Imperato as well. Couldn't get it done there.
Maybe this could be the opportunity for Daniel Serra. Baptista
He's inside.
Now, he looked to the inside, but now Baptista's going to have the inside line for turn 13, Billy Mitchell. And that traffic there is really playing into Serra's hands a little bit in terms of putting the pressure back on the Bentley in front of him. Imperato there pretty strong in terms of not being intimidated there by the Bentley coming up on him.
But I love Soule's line about him. Glad I'm not driving that car. I wouldn't want to be Baptista right now with Serra hunting the way he is. This is pretty fierce stuff. And again, Imperato, you know, he's third in class, but he wants to stay as close as he can just in case something develops here with Barkey and or Hedlund. Barkey's closed that gap to Hedlund down to under 4 now, back to 3.8 seconds, Cal.
Pretty sure that was his fastest lap of the race at 2:09.7. So Martin Barkey, again, just a tremendous gutsy performance. He's dug deep, looked himself in the mirror after yesterday. Not that it was a disastrous performance by any stretch of the imagination. They were fighting out for the win in the closing laps there in Pro-Am, but nonetheless, he felt he had a bit more Serra wide there, little error into the brake zone. See Jim Huey and the K-Pax team there just watching on, trying to see how this one is going to shake out.
And I'm sorry, for what it's worth, we had an onboard shot from Baptista looking back at Serra, and I saw Serra, the windshield wiper, going a couple of times. Now, that could have just been some schmutz that was thrown up onto the windshield as well, but...
That's a technical term, right?
A highly technical term, exactly. So, here we go. Hedlund continuing to lead this one overall. There is Martin Barkey. Acuras continue to run 1-2. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with CrowdStrike and with Mercedes-AMG. Mr. Hedlund is doing just an absolutely stellar job at see those windshields. I think a lot of that is just when you're running wide, kicking up a little bit of junk. It doesn't look like it's necessarily wet from rain, just dirty. We are into the final 15 minutes. This 12th round of the championship, riding on board with Baptista, who's not yet been able to figure a way through on Imperato. But yeah, he's got a head of steam built, doesn't he?
Looks pretty calm there when you look at the rearview mirror on the Bentley, watching the body language of Baptista. Slices it to the inside.
Nice.
Pretty clean, and meanwhile, Serra trying to rebound from that little mistake. He gets a run. He'd love to get around Imperato on this brake zone to turn 3. Does it?
Yeah.
That's good. That's overall points, which is what the Ferrari team needs here. Our Ferrari will be sitting there thinking, let's not give too many away here. He said we'll just go to Vegas and try and seal the deal there, but 51-point lead coming in. Don't want to give up too many of Tony Vlander's points advantage.
It's a real tightrope when you're in this scenario, isn't it, about how aggressive you want to be. And it's always risk versus reward, and you get near the end of the championship and you got a nice point lead, not insurmountable, but nice. You start walking that tightrope a little bit.
You really do, and you get out of your rhythm a little bit. I think this day was such a question mark in terms of what setups do you put on the race car, what conditions will we see? Would we even see racing here today. There was talk about torrential rain all day, and maybe we'd have lost the racetrack. We had to shorten a couple of the races and flag them early because it was just too wet and torrential to run in. But we have seen the action here, and now we're looking at that battle for second. Barkey continues to hold it from the number 9 of Andy Soucek, the Spanish driver.
Soucek running about a half-second quicker that last lap, though, than Barkey. The margin down to 1.3. And he's inexorably closing.
Headland running his fastest laps of the race.
What a story.
As the fuel burns off, the car gets a little bit lighter. He's managed those tires beautifully. His race car's getting quicker. Maybe he's got enough in hand to hold on to this overall and Pro-Am class win.
Rodrigo, boy, he has got to be absolutely spot on every time he goes to the throttle coming out of a corner here, because Sarah is right there in this battle now for essentially 4th overall. Bentley versus Ferrari. It's been the story in many ways this entire season in terms of the overall and pro category here in the Blancpain GT World Challenge America class, and that battle continues. But on the day, real-time racing and Acura really have the story here at this stage. Headland responding beautifully as those pursuers of Barkey, Soucek, and the rest had closed in just a little bit. I think you've been following it, Cal, and he's been uncorking some of his best laps.
Yeah, each lap gets a little bit quicker, but so is Barkey. So they were just a few hundredths apart, but Barkey marginally quicker. But the gap is being managed. Oh, car in the wall. David Askew.
Well, that's exit of the kink area, isn't it? No, that's that tricky. Oh, when it, and the safety car is called.
Oh boy.
Oh, he's got damage.
Debris.
Yeah, that is the exit of the kink.
Okay, well, we had a late race shootout yesterday.
Oh boy.
But it's got a very different dynamic to this one with the AM drivers in the Pro-Am combination behind the wheel right now. David's just got to slow down a little bit. If that rear wing takes off, he's going to have 0 downforce left. Well, he's got a ton to deal with right now.
Exactly. So, double yellows fly. The problem here is that this is such a long track.
Kills a lot of the time on the
Yes,
clock.
it
So the
does.
time they get around, pick up the safety car, it could be a 1-lap shootout, if that.
And for Headland, he has worked so hard to maintain that advantage.
Might be slowing down or a crawl.
That's a good point. Yep. Play your cards as they're dealt you here.
Well, we're saying green. Did we go yellow?
Well,
Was that
I
local?
saw double yellow. Well, I saw double yellows, and that means. But race control, yep, they're showing green. Race control may have said when he drove off, track is okay. Let's get back to it again.
Okay, well that changes things.
It
So
sure
we saw
does.
some debris down there. Well, guess these guys haven't slowed down.
Let's hope. I mean, that's the interesting thing is, did somebody get on radio and say we're yellow and they backed way off and lose a ton of time here? Look at that, Sarah.
Oh, Sarah's gone around. This is very confusing. I
Yeah.
thought we'd gone yellow.
Absolutely. Well, there were double yellows flying. And Sarah obviously never lifted. Everybody else did.
Huge in the championship.
This is massive.
Headland continues to lead by 6 seconds. Sarah's taken advantage of this situation and has jumped up to the 2nd position, and this is enough to seal and clinch the championship for Tony Nylander. He had enough of a points margin coming in, and this will just extend it. Anything over 50 points will seal it.
Oh, Soucek got Barkey a little bit offline. Barkey tried to come back, and Soucek fighting through. But basically, I mean, the number 9 had to finish in front of the 61 by more than 1 or 2 spots. All right, now Baptista going to force the issue here, and then there's the 2 right Porsches.
Caution right there. Pat Long, this has potential to get messy here. Pat Long has caught this group. He's now in the mix, rebounded nicely from a great start to the race for the 58 machine. Imperato is in with a shot of getting around Barkey for a Pro-Am position. Meanwhile, Headland Must have come the hammer down somewhat. But those last laps were in the 220s and 230s, so that's strange that we went full course yellow. I guess you can go full course yellow back to green without the safety car being deployed. That's essentially what happened.
And if somebody didn't read it right or somebody read it to perfection, huge advantages can be gained. Looks like Daniel Serra pulled that off. Well, as the old saying says, things are getting curiouser and curiouser here at Road America. Hedlund comes through. Interesting to see what he's got for a margin here with 7 minutes left.
He's
4.8.
4.8, and Serra's 1.3 seconds faster. Time's on the clock here. We're going to get a few laps here. Maybe 3, maybe 4. That's enough for Serra to catch him.
It is.
Doesn't really matter in the Pro-Am side of things, but certainly you know that real time would love to be celebrating their 100th victory on home soil, and it would have been really cool to do it with an overall win, but I think Daniel Serra may have other thoughts on that one, but he'll know that Mike Hedlund is not a walkover. He had to make many laps at Watkins Glen to get by that Acura.
Exactly. The problem is where the Ferrari makes its speed is definitely through the corners. It's so well balanced and fast, and everybody acknowledges the Acura a little bit quicker in a straight line, and once Serra catches him, if he gets into that wash and can't float that speed through a corner, we might be able to see Hedlund rinse and repeat. I mean, he did it for what, some 20 minutes or almost at the Glen.
But again, you get into that mode. Do you want to risk the class win, risk maybe Dane Cameron's championship possibilities? Still 2 rounds to go, but right now it would be down to a 4-point margin between Dane Cameron and Barkey and Marcelli.
Yes, exactly.
The reason that Hedlund is not tied with Dane in points is that Brett Curtis did some initial rounds of this championship in this car, so Hedlund was drafted in from Sonoma on.
And they even put Trent Hinman in for one of the races as well. So
moved to a pro class that day, so that really hurt Dane's potential. That was a handful of points that went away.
Yeah, I mean, so they essentially are 3 races behind, and this charge they've made has been just absolutely remarkable. And we're coming up on 5 minutes left here. Can Mike Hedlund pull off the magic? There is Daniel Serra. That is your margin. First to second, under 4 seconds. As we're into our final 5 minutes. 5 minutes remaining, and it is Mike Hedlund in the lead, but Daniel Serra in second and closing relatively rapidly. Over a second a lap. He is closing down on Hedlund, but not a lot of time left here. Suchek third, Baptista fourth, and Barkey fifth, but of course Barkey's second in Pro-Am.
I believe we have 2.5, basically 3 laps to go. Last time they crossed the stripe, the margin was 3.6 seconds. Serra was 1.3 seconds faster. You multiply that out by 3, that's 3.9 seconds, and he's got 3.6 seconds to catch up. So maybe turn 8 on the last lap.
Something along those lines, exactly. And you know, Mike Hedlund had said after the Glen, he said, you know, if that would have been the last 10 minutes of the race, I would have fought to try and hang on to the overall. He said, but with 30 minutes to go, he said, I had to be realistic. We're in this for the Pro-Am. Well, guess what? We're far less than 5 minutes to go in this one. Look at that
man,
team.
Nathan Bonneau, team manager for Real Time. What is he telling his man? Is he letting him do his own thing? Is he advising him? He'll be giving him the gaps, but ultimately the decision for Mike is how hard do you want to push and try and get that first overall win, but jeopardize potentially the Pro-Am win today.
I think for Mike, he has just been clocking off these 209s, and he just needs to keep doing that. Do exactly what he's doing. Don't push anymore. Don't take risk. You're in that groove, and if Serra gets to you, well, then you do your best judgment call here, but right now Mike is doing a nice job.
First sector he was a 10th quicker than Serra. Second sector he was 4/10 off, so I'm not sure if this will be a second difference here in this lap time between Hedlund and Serra, and if he can maintain this sort of pace, he may be able to pull it off. 2.9, yeah, so there was only 0.6 of a second difference. Hedlund just laid down a 2:08.7.
Wow.
How about that? He just trimmed about 8 or 9 tenths off his previous best. He's a gamer.
He is. Down through turn 3, hugely important corner, got to the throttle early. Saw that little correct, but no lift. He is pinning it.
I love this.
Take a look at those best of the laps there. You can see Sarah quicker on the lap, but Hedlund is finding it and minimizing
Sarah's
the
pushing.
differences.
Just at his personal best first sector, trimmed 3 tenths out of that gap, which stood at 2.9 across the line.
And again, if you're wondering, folks, this is a Pro-Am car leading and a Pro car second. Why push to go by? Because the Pro cars score points on the overall. It's a 7-point swing if he can get around them. That's why.
Bear in mind, the position he sits right now still clinches the championship for Wielander. Do you want to throw that away? How aggressive can Sarah afford to be? Even if he gets to the tail of the NSX, if he goes for it and gets it wrong, changes the whole complexion of the championship.
Exactly.
That's what they're discussing right now, you'd have to think.
You bet. You bet. I'm pretty sure I know what Tony's going to say. Take second if you have to.
Ferrari North American Motorsports manager is there, giving his input as well.
All right, here we go. Sarah's definitely closing it up. Should be white flag this time by.
It's a big lap for Sarah compared to Hedlund. I think he's going to trim maybe a second plus out of that. Can Hedlund hang on?
Through 14, powered down nicely early.
He's got to do 14 more corners to seal it and win this.
All right, let's see. Margin 2.9 last time by. 1.6 and a 2:07.6 for Sarah.
Wow, only a 10th outside, the best of the race that he holds as well.
Look at that look. They know what's on the line here.
We got in deep there. He got in deep there. That may have been a little error there by Mike Hedlund.
He's just trying to flow every ounce of speed he can.
Just looked like the entry was a little bit off. Still got to apex, but certainly on turn in. Just hit your marks, Mike.
Yeah, do what you've been doing.
That Acura's got pretty good speed. Not a ton of speed over the Ferrari, but get through the kink okay. Maybe home free. I just do not think Sarah's going to put too much on the line in the last couple of corners. Trying to make a move into Canada, or particularly into 14, is a high-risk situation. I'm not sure he wants to jeopardize Tony Wielander's championship for those final few points.
Into the carousel for the last time. You know what, we were talking about Sarah's lap last time, but that was the second straight lap that Hedlund dipped into the 2:08s, Cal. He is definitely responding a little bit here.
Well, I said he'd catch him at turn 8 on the last lap. It's actually going to be turn 12, possibly.
Here it is, down in the Canada corner. Last lap. Big margin now back to Soucek and the rest of the field. This is mano a mano. Pro-Am driver Hedlund.
Little twitch there, he's on the power early. Just got to bring it home, just got to hit that braking mark perfectly. It's a tricky brake zone, Sarah's close.
He's got to just get to the throttle smoothly here. Looks like he did. All right, he's got a margin up the hill. Sarah not close enough to get much of a tow. Pro-Am win, but an overall win, the 100th for real-time racing at their home track, Road America, and to do it with an overall win with a Pro-Am pairing. What a day. Here comes Soucek and Baptista, 3rd and 4th overall. Long, sneaking by Barkey right at the end as well.
Tony Wielander clinches.
Yes, that is a championship clinch as well, Cal.
2 in a row for Tony Wielander. Wow. What a day of racing.
Holy cow. And
Mike Hedlund, you are a stud. Dane Cameron celebrates. He can think about another championship here in the last few weeks of the season.
Yeah.
That margin is now cut Down to just 4 points with 2 rounds to go.
Now, Barkey will still be second in the Pro-Am, even though he finished a bit farther down the overall order, but they don't get scored that way. Imperato, a handy third as well. So that championship's certainly open.
What, did Hedlund respond or what?
Oh, dipping into the 208 for 2 consecutive laps.
Awesome.
That was just superb.
Oh, he showcased it at Watkins Glen. The pressure does not get to this man. What a day for him, for Dane Cameron, for Real Time, Petey Cunningham, Nathan Minot, the whole group there. They have set the bar for so long in World Challenge competition to celebrate that 100th victory here on home soil. Just 30 minutes down the road from their shop. That is awesome, awesome stuff.
That's some class stuff. The Bentley boys coming up alongside Mike, giving him a big thumbs up for what he was just able to do. And again, Dane Cameron gave him a great margin to work with. The crew put together a stop. It all fell into place for Real Time at their home track, team based 30 miles away in Saukville, Wisconsin. That's the moment.
Radio!
I'll tell you, just an amazing run, obviously. But that is the great story locally here. But the big picture story is that clinch, and the interesting machinations around that double yellow, no double yellow, as well. Sarah certainly took advantage of that situation to absolute perfection.
He really did. I've never quite seen that scenario play out where you're double yellow, full caution, and by the time you get back to the stripe, we're green again. So just communicating that effectively, and obviously a lot of the drivers were caught out. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion about that because that was a huge advantage for Daniel Serra, who obviously timed it or judged it, or it was communicated to him a little bit more effectively, and he jumped around a gaggle of cars there, and with that, has taken away the opportunity for the Capex team, who are in pretty good shape to reduce the margin and go to Vegas with a shot at this title. That was taken away from them.
Yeah, but I think everybody looking at Vegas, because it's a track that nobody has tested on. There's one test day before the weekend starts, so it's a fresh sheet of paper really for everybody. And there's an opportunity for a team to just come in, execute a little bit better in terms of working the setups on the cars. It was wide open, and it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. But let's take nothing away here from what both Dane Cameron did. Again, starting right there on the outside of that front row, went to the lead early with a brilliant start like he does, putting up a large number. And look at Petey Cunningham over there just beating on Mike Hedlund with absolute delight. #100th win.
Petey's got to be ecstatic.
Oh, no
what
kidding.
a weekend.
Yep.
You couldn't script this one.
Not at all. And Petey still holds virtually every record of significance in World Challenge competition.
Most of those with Honda and HPD support, so it's a big day for this group.
You bet it is. And this little bit of bench racing and reliving, special stuff indeed.
Where did he get that pace from when it counted?
Well, as you said, he just seems to handle pressure beautifully. The celebrations have erupted here at Road America. Down in the queue for Victory Circle, Hedlund, Cameron, and Petey Cunningham, Ryan.
Well, 4 straight wins now for this pairing, 100 for Real Time, and an overall win for you guys. Mike Hedlund, how about that?
That was pretty good. Dane and the team did all the work. I just kind of drove around and stayed out of trouble and no mistakes, stayed on track, and brought home a win. Number 100 for Real Time.
Yes, definitely a meaningful one for the team and for you, Dane. Now, well and truly in the Pro-Am Championship headed into Las Vegas.
Yeah, just really, really proud to be here for a part of this. You know, it means a lot to Peter, especially to do it here at home and with all these guys with their friends and family. Super, super special day, and just really, really proud of Mike. He did an awesome job there at the end under some really big pressure and was kind of pulling away. And yeah, you could see how badly he wanted it because he turned it up to another gear the last couple laps and found some more pace. So yeah, pretty awesome day.
It was impressive to watch. Well done.
Thanks.
It was funny. Mike Hedlund sounded like Dane's other teammate there for a moment.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, pretty good.
That's pretty good. And it was superb. Take a look at the provisional results here. Headland and Cameron with the overall win. Sarah jumping up into second and bringing Tony Vielander a provisional clinch on the championship. Suchek and Baptista and the two Bentleys, third and fourth. And I'm sure they are feeling a little disabused perhaps. And then Long on that last lap sneaking around Barkey and picking up the fifth spot. Still, though, Martin Barkey doing a nice job.
Great
Solid
day.
second place overall for a lot of his stint. And pretty impressive stuff. But right now, let's get back down to Ryan and hear from our provisional champions.
That's right, the pro winners here as well. Daniel Serra, we got to talk to you about the end of that race when there was a safety car and then there wasn't, and you were able to take advantage of it. How were you able to do it? What happened from where you were sitting?
Yeah, like we were on full course yellow procedure, and then suddenly there was no more full course yellow. It was green and no safety car. So I pushed, and then I was able to overtake both Bentleys, and I was trying hard to win overall, but I didn't have enough laps. So congrats for them. He did a good job, like being a IM and don't do any mistakes with a pro pushing behind is not so easy. So he did a good job. I'm happy. Again, as I told in the previous weekend, I'm happy to help Tony and the team. I think now he's if I'm not wrong, he's the champion. So I'm super happy for him.
And yes, for you, Tony, provisionally you are the champion, had a championship in this series a year ago as well. Still 2 races to go, but what does this accomplishment mean?
Yeah, I mean, let's wait for the final result. It was a bit confusing towards the end of the race, but I think this was the most difficult stint of the whole year because of the damp conditions and on slicks. If I make a mistake, it would look super stupid, and I would basically give a huge amount of points just on the plate to our opponent. So I just had to keep the car on the track. I started the stint with a used tire, and I wasn't super confident with the car in general. I had a few moments earlier on when the track was still a little bit slippery. So even towards the end of the stint, it wasn't a super performance for me. But the limiting factor was just the fact that I couldn't do a mistake.
But you got the job done, championship and a class win. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and a repeat, a defending champion defends that championship. That's pretty special stuff indeed. And speaking of special, let's walk over to the podium at Road America for Dane Cameron, Mike Headland, Petey Cunningham in real-time racing. 100 wins. So as the celebrations make their way over to the podium, you have a look, and I guess both our apps were wrong.
In terms of the rain, yeah. I mean, it was definitely in the area, but didn't get here to Road America, and that really made a big difference because we could have had the cat amongst the pigeons there if we got rain with these drivers on slick tires. We had a similar scenario, though, in terms of a bit of a half reset. Went full course yellow, safety car never appeared, went back to green immediately. Daniel Serra took advantage of that situation by leapfrogging the Bentleys and the main Gagler group, but Headland was up to the task to win that big race for real time here at their home circuit with all of the families for the team here. It's a special, special day, and these teams work so hard to achieve success, and to get a milestone victory on home turf, you just can't script it any better. And for Mike Headland, the 2 weekends where he's been under pressure with the overall lead and was stood up beautifully at Watkins Glen, ultimately gave it up there because there's a lot of time on the clock, but today, Dane Cameron said it best. He found another gear.
Well, he did, and I was just going to say, at the Glen he withstood it. Here, for a while, here, when he needed to find pace, he was in low 209s. When he needed to do something, he was able to find it in the 208s for about 3 straight laps. You look at that final margin, under half a second. He doesn't find that second a lap for 3 laps. Who knows?
Exactly. And, you know, and the key is once Serra got close to him, he didn't miss a beat. He didn't make a mistake. Those last couple of brake zones into 12 and even into 14, you got to float the car in there. You can't just hammer the brakes. You got to time it correctly, not miss your marks. A lot of pressure there because he would have looked pretty silly in terms of giving up the lead that late in the go, and he didn't. It wasn't even close to making a mistake and just brought it home. Beautiful stuff.
Absolutely, and we also need to give a shout-out to, even though they're the only car in the class, still a nice run by the Turner BMW for the number 96 for Takeda and Shirazaka. well played for them, and a good day as well. And I really respected Tony Wielander being the realist, the humble realist there, saying, let's wait. It was a bit confusion. You know, I'm sure we'll be talking about it. For him to acknowledge that, I thought was very much a class act, and we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think it's tough, even if there was a procedural thing, and I'm not saying there is or there isn't, but you can't reverse it now. How do you go back and fix it, even if there was a mistake by anyone? So I think he sealed the deal. He deserves it. They've been super consistent and fast at the same time.
Yep, I just respected him for even saying that. That's pretty good stuff. Taking a look here at the provisional results, and the great story there, that overall win and the Pro-Am win for Mike Hedlund and Dane Cameron. And for Dane Cameron, closing in now, I mean, very close in terms of this championship, being able to finish in front of Barkey and Marcelli and Imperato, and in this case, Matt Campbell. That's tight.
It is 4 points now going to Vegas, and it's mano a mano. It's going to be tight. I mean, the Racers Edge team are doing a brilliant job as well with the setup on the car. I think they've found some speed the last couple of weekends. It's not been enough to beat the 43 car, but they're nipping at their heels. If they can tune on that race car, maybe they find the right setup for Vegas. No one's been there. No one knows what to expect, so it's not going to be easy. Barkey did a great job. He had equal pace for most of this race to Mike Hedlund until Mike Hedlund find that last gear at the last part of the race. And, you know, Marcelli and Cameron, they're two of the best.
They are indeed. And it was so fun to see Petey Cunningham down in the interview area celebrating with it. There are your AM category winners. Nice job once again for Turner Motorsports and their BMW in the hands of Takeda and Shirazaka, doing a very solid job. And even though it was a second overall finish for the 61R Ferrari, Daniel Serra was definitely flying right at the end. But that second overall finish, more importantly, finishing right in front of the number 9 of Suchek and Parent. That'll be a clinch. But now we go, as we're watching the podiums unfold here, and this is for the Pro-Am, and there is Matt Campbell and Anthony Imperato. Campbell holding that trophy right there. And he is just an impressive man with a great future, isn't he?
He's already a star, and his star's going to just shine brighter because he is immense. I mean, he is going to be a Porsche factory pilot, you would believe, for a long, long time.
And as the podiums continue, we take a look at some highlights here. And it all started with a brilliant move once again at the start by Dane Cameron right around the outside.
Yeah, just inched around the outside of Marcelli. He looked at where the dry was in that opening lap. Here we come down to turn 3. Seemed like Campbell was putting the pressure on. Side by side there between Parent and DL. Parent eventually gets the move on the Mercedes, but DL kept the pressure on throughout the course of this race.
You're watching there is Parent trying to go out and around the outside of Campbell, and Campbell having none of that. DL trying to stick it down the inside, and Parent working very hard to make sure that didn't happen because he knew 2 cars back was a red Ferrari.
Here comes Maxime Soulet making a move on Tony Wielander. Number 3 Bentley was very fast here this weekend. Seemed like they had the setup for the dry conditions. Narrow miss there for Martin Fuentes, coming up on the back of Scott Hargrove.
Yeah, this is his debut weekend running in the Pro-Am category. Already clinched the AM championship, so he and Marquisa decided to give it a go in Pro-Am, and showed some speed on occasion for sure. And we go back to this great scrap here after the pit stops and the driver changes. It got real, and at the end it got real close. However, at the end it was real time. Pro-Am car hanging on for an overall win, the 100th for the team at home, and for Serra, he helped Wielander win a championship.